Up, everybody. Thank y'all for coming out for February's edition of Free Game in Charlotte. Um, I'm excited because it's been a long month. And shoot, let's get going. I was about to say something about, I was about to make a Black History joke, but I guess you shouldn't joke about Black History years, not months. But I'll leave that there. Um, so today is an open session, and really what we're coming in today is just I'm going to get therapy and answer questions, and hopefully, not hopefully, turn my brain on and think about some things that aren't um, the regular things we're working on, or hopefully even get some clarity on things that we're working on from some of the things that I talk about with you guys today. As always, I'm here to help, but most importantly, I'm here to learn. I appreciate y'all making time. G, we can let on screen heat up so we can get questions going in the chat. I don't know who's running the chat today. G's running the chat, so ask all your questions to G, and don't get censored when you ask the question. Feel free to ask hard ones, and I'm gonna let somebody go in first because I'm coming in cold. But again, thank y'all. We getting started already.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I did have a few questions for you. Not really clothing related, but I noticed that you're going on like close to 20 stores, correct?
To be exact, on the books, 26.
That's crazy. I'm be honest, that's crazy. But it seems like every city that I paid attention to where you opened up a store, it almost seemed like in a prime location. And I feel like real estate right now is kind of tough to get good locations right now. So I just kind of wonder, like, how do you go about forecasting where you're gonna open up your next store?
Honestly, I find us when I go into town, I gotta my age is going to show, but I used to just go out. And if it's a town that I've experienced a lot, you kind of know it. So you can just call some of your homeboys. Samir, what's up? You can call some of your homeboys and kind of like get an idea, because once you got the vibe of a city, let me use one as an example. Um, Detroit. We done something a bit untraditional, right? When I went to Detroit, I spent a lot of time with Rick Williams, um, just going around Detroit, and I had a general understanding of Detroit, but that was a city where we looked and we knew we wanted to develop something, right? Because here I'll go backwards. Depending upon where you are in your business, um, that dictates where your rent should be. 15 years ago, 20 years ago, we came to this building. My rent in this building was $1,500. Actually, actually, it started off as $3,000. Then the landlord quickly realized these dudes can't afford $3,000. Let me give him. Recession was coming, because remember, Flavor Factory was on South Boulevard. So we came over here, and the landlord walked in and just like on a random Tuesday and was like, "Hey, I just decreased your rent from like 3,000 to like 1,700." And then he called again and was like, "No, I changed my mind. It's actually going to be 900." So he changed the rent on the building for $900. But if you also think about Central Avenue in 2007, like it used to just be like it was a. I mean, it was a vibe for us. Like for us, it was zero dangerous, right? But people didn't look at Central Avenue in 2006 the way they do in 2020, right? And because the whole real estate market nationally has started to change, because we used to make this joke. We knew it's a joke, but I'll say it anyway because it's funny. We used to say, anytime you seen a white man running in the evening, you knew you were safe, regardless of how hood it was. That was because the neighborhoods was like, yo, it was wild around here in '06. But honestly, we went to places where the rent was inexpensive.
Right.
The rent in Greensboro when we opened in Greensboro was $1,200.
That was your third.
Third, it was Pittsburgh, and that rent was like $3,000, and I thought that was a lot. Like $3,000. Oh my God, what am I going to do? This rent was it went to 900 and then went back up, and then we eventually bought the building. I'm giving you a long-winded version. I'm gonna get there.
Please.
The point I was making was first, I had the luxury of expanding in 2012 and 13. The economy hadn't gotten over the Great Recession yet, so commercial real estate was cheap. I had the foresight to realize that I needed to lock in as many terms against that first lease as I could. So in many of our leases are just starting to expire, and we're now converting our rented model into an owned model. But most of those leases was on 5-year leases with 3 5-year options with 3% increases. So when you starting at $900, right, and you increasing up across 15 years, like our cost of doing business was really low until just recently. All right, I gave you the history.
Right.
Today, it's a lot more difficult because of speculation in real estate. When rates were low, people were just buying stuff up at 2%. The money's cheap. Credit got a little easier. Banks was a little friendlier. So now everyone's speculating. I think what we're going to start to see is rates increases. The prices of commercial real estate is going to go down. I don't think it's going to ever go back to 2008,
Right.
but that's what makes brick and mortar tough to get into. Look at the neighborhood now. You're competing against what's the thing on where Dairy Queen used to be? What is it called? No bread and what's that? Pizza Pill and what's the old bakery? Nova's. What's the milk? Some like you get a drive through. Like yo, what like what is this now? It's very different than 15 years ago. So now I think it takes a lot more. It takes a lot more capital to enter the market than what it did in 2004, 2005. It takes a lot more. Hell, even the relationships are tougher, right? Like in 2000 in 2005, big brands were looking to do business. They were open for business. Most brands now aren't open for business. This is something that we don't actually talk about a lot in our industry. So I'll say something people it won't be popular for me to say it. Right now is not a good time to start in a retail industry. I think if you're a woman, it's the best time. I think if you're sharp and have a plan, it's the best time. But the industry needs new ideas, not people coming in to do the same things. Does that make sense? So what I would caution you to say is, hey, before you just take a brick and mortar space and say, what up? Before you take a brick and mortar space and just say like, yo, I want to open up the next social status, right? And I want to do it 15 minutes from social status. Like, well, you got one problem. Social status. Does it make sense? So you're going to come and be like, yo, Jay, I'm opening the store. I want your help. And I'm going to be like, bet. And then I'm going to be like, all right, meet me at your location. I'm like, bro, we're right over there.
Right.
Even if I wanted to help you, that's not how the model works.
Right.
Does that make sense? All I have to say, try to find the most walkable neighborhood you can find in a neighborhood where the core consumer exists. I always went towards us because I'm us, so I was never shaken by us. Right. So I can come into our neighborhood and feel very comfortable wherever we was at because I was used the energy. Never somebody be like, oh, you want to go in Harlem? We was looking at the corner of Lenox and 125th. We didn't inevitably we didn't get that building. But most people was scared of that amount of there's probably more black people on 125th and Lenox than you'll see in Charlotte in a month in one place. You see more in the hour on that corner than you will in a lot of places. And most people don't, it's too much traffic
Right.
for some folks, right? So it's a balance of what are things that people are willing to help you with. There's somebody somewhere in this town that's willing. Here, me. We're opening up a space over on Tuckasegee. Yeah, it's probably somebody gonna shoot me, but if you go on Tuckasegee, I mean somebody on our team, I'm oversharing. Um, but that space that where we're developing like 12 spaces, but the idea of what we're developing there, we're also doing the same thing in Detroit, is to help solve this because someone has a concept. Um, Samir is a perfect example of somebody who started with a rented space, bought a space, but he's been doing it for how long? I was at Flavor Factory when you started. Yeah, so that long, right? No, when did you buy the printer from Pat? Did it was before that. Yeah, so you start to think about people who started that long. Now, like back then, shit, I was still trying to find help myself, right? So only thing I could give him was words and encouragement. Yo, don't fuck nobody. Right? But today, the help looks different. So we have a group of us. I'm giving y'all it all now, but who cares? It's called Impact CLT. We have a nonprofit private equity group, and the goal of that group is to provide capital for Black businesses.
That's dope.
And what we're developing in on Tuckasegee is actual space of a neighborhood. To your point, this is if I was developing a project today, I would probably go to Tuckasegee, right? But very quickly, there's nothing for rent on Tuckasegee. Everything else is being developed. So we bought up a bunch of space with the idea of investing back into other businesses that were the equivalent of myself 20 years ago or Samir 10 years ago to help them get started, infuse capital, and help people just get moved along. That was a very long answer to your question, but I hope it made all
Very
made
thorough.
sense.
I actually appreciate every detail of that answer.
Yeah, no issue at all. And it helped get me warmed up. Somebody else had their hand up. G, you got anything online?
Yes. With many retailers opening into 2023 overstock, how would you grade the Whitaker Group as a whole on keeping inventory levels lean?
Oh, horrible. God. I don't think anyone, somebody, I shouldn't say anybody because I can't speak for everybody. But if you look across the corporate landscape, I think COVID caught everyone. And I think our inventory position is no different. The thing that I think, Tanisha's not in the room, but the thing that we're working on most is because we don't believe in sale. So you're never going to walk into any of our spaces and see quote unquote sale. So it presents a problem in also how we present ourselves online on sale, how we present sales digitally online is something we haven't built. So now we have to create a strategic muscle. Shout out to Off Season and what we're creating with that platform to create markdowns in places where you sell markdown stuff. So we've created a concept that most people probably don't know we own called Off Season, and we're sprinkling them in weird places around the country. Not weird, different places around the country to move. But no, I think we're healthy. But I would definitely like for our inventory levels to be in a different place. That was a very pointed question. You got anybody got a follow up to that, G? All right, somebody in the room has something?
What is the big market? Like, are you going to move to bigger? Was that part of the question? Was moving to bigger markets? Like,
No.
It's been a part of the strategy to stay in leaner, easier to manage markets.
No, it all starts to happen. We've been working for the last couple years on just not growing for the sake of growing, but strategic growth because there's just places, there's communities. It's less about retail anymore because like respectfully, we can sell more shit in the places we got. Does that make sense? But it's about being in places where we can serve and we can learn. So Baltimore for social status is Baltimore, Detroit. Somebody keep me honest because I'm going to not remember all of this. It's Baltimore, Detroit. Oh no, not the open ones. The ones that's about to open. Baltimore, Detroit, Harlem, Beach in Charleston, flagship in Pittsburgh, flagship in Atlanta, um, a women's concept in Atlanta, Jade women's concept across the street in Charlotte, the city block I just talked to y'all about, APU, APB, ABBU. Um, it's a total of 9 new spaces opening. So, but the goal is, like you said, we have stayed out of major markets, but New York, if we come into New York, we ain't going to Soho, right? Like we're going to Harlem. Like somebody could be like, "Oh, Brooklyn." Like, nah, bro, we truly fitting was the Bronx or Harlem, but Harlem just felt right for all the reasons, right? We've been working on flagship for a while for Alma Manier, and then yeah. But to answer your question, no, we're starting to go into some bigger markets, and strategically, we're going to go into the neighborhoods that make sense. We're going to go international in London, and we're looking at Brixton and other neighborhoods that just represent who we are in those places, and not just go to like places to go. You know what I'm saying? I want to go and be with it. I want the same energy everywhere. Like I'm not looking to go somewhere and get a different kind of energy, if that makes sense. We fly.
So the Burgundy, so like is Burgundy, I feel like that, was that, or not Burgundy?
No, Burgundy's. This is Burgundy.
That's
It's
Burgundy?
different than Mauve.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Mauve is lighter.
Yeah.
But is that like what inspired the color choice specifically? I know that that's been like a theme, has been like that kind of like deep red wine color, and really all the Jordan. Is that kind of how the whole suite is going to look?
I think Mauve and maroon have definitely become bloodline colors for us.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to explore other colors because it wouldn't be
selling yourself short, I feel like.
Yeah, it wouldn't be as fun if we didn't. But I think the idea of developing bloodline colors was something that's super important for Jordan Brand, especially when you start to think about the legacy of the brand and what it means to Black folks and all the things, right? So if you're going to work with, there was a commitment in the very beginning where we knew we'd be working. So you want to be intentional from the very beginning to start to ask yourself, when you look back at this,
Right.
30 years from now,
Yeah.
you want to be able to take yourself on a journey, not just through the product, but through the stories, through the people and the evolution of everything that we're doing, right? We never really talk about product, but the 12s, I mean, and think about it too. Think about the most nostalgic 12s. Then kind of look at our 12s. Does that make sense? It's timeless, classic, luxury. I think there's tons of, Salehi does an incredible job on moving lines, right? Chris moves lines. We tend to stay in a lane of creating things that you'll be able to wear forever. And not to say that you can't wear those things forever, right? But like, again, like, I ain't gonna hold you, bro. We're working on Jordans over it. Like, yeah,
You gotta pick it.
we get classics. Yeah. Like it's already a classic. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Maya. But my question is, I know we celebrate Black people all year round because we work for a Black company. Well, I work for you. But how important is it for you to create like, I don't know, a celebration for Black History Month in the spaces that you've created, like in different cities?
It's funny you say that because I get to be honest here. I do not like the idea of Black History Month. And when people call me and say like, hey, we really want to do this Black History Month thing, which I'm usually like, definitely not doing it. Like, I don't want to talk to anyone during Black History Month. Like the idea that our stories are going to be told in 28 days is laughable to me. So it's like, yo, I'm not going to go all of a sudden, everybody who has a platform wants to talk in February. Like, nah, let's talk in May. Does that make sense? We could talk in July if you want, You want to talk in June? Any month except February. Like honestly, like with Jordan Brand, what we're doing, this is actually, it wasn't intended to land in February. It's honestly just like, oh well, the product's going to land in February. Like, oh, okay, dope, right? But and I mean, it's Jordan Brand, right? Like it's this is like, no, not board corporation. This is like big bro. Like this is, we can do anything we want in that way, right? So that's not, we're telling our stories, and it happens to be February. We're not telling our stories because it's Black History Month. But I think what I've challenged Mark on Black History Month is just have a point of view, right? Like what's the one thing that we want to twist the knife on? And right now, we were on a call with Givenchy a few weeks ago or days ago. I can't remember how long ago it was at this point, because it's also the 50th year of hip hop. But for us, everything is always really consistent about what we want to get after, right? For me, our history our history and our story hasn't been fully told. So I'm not about to like try to like rack my brain on every day of 28 days to give you this banger story about how we overcame. And like, no, man, we're gonna talk about this for the rest of our lives, and we're gonna rewrite how y'all give the information to our kids in school, and we're gonna create a platform where we're comfortable. I think if anybody was at Free Game last time, I think the thing that stuck out to me and made that such a good session, and we apparently talked for 2 to 3 hours, because it was the idea of what us doing this is just building community, right? And building conversation and building a unified voice. That unified voice consistently 365 is more important to me than the idea of like amplifying Black history. Now, I say that and realize that we live in America, and America don't give a fuck, because if they did, then we wouldn't be talking about what we talking about, right? So there's still a part of it where you got to leverage it for people who won't talk about it otherwise, right? But instead of us talking about it, if somebody's calling me saying like, hey, you want to talk to us on Black History Month? No, but there's probably a new young creative that y'all should talk to, because they can leverage, I could exit my name out of the hat so someone new can kind of come in and jump in, and you can discover someone else in that same 28 days, because the more the merrier, right? There has to be more of us that have a platform. There have to be more of us to kind of hold hands together. So in that way, I guess we could have like thought about, hey, how do we do 28 days of new creatives? But I think we think that way all the time, right? I think we work with incredible people. I think we get a chance to do incredible things all the time. So I'm not gonna be like, yo, Chris, I like you more in February. Like, it's just not true, right? So I just, it takes a while, but I won't allow us to just settle for these 28 days. Does that make sense? Respectfully. G, we got something online?
Yes. You just said it's a bad time to get into retail, but talk about building experiences. Can you talk about the difference between the two, retail versus experiential consumer concepts?
Yeah, I think concept spaces, concept ideas, concepts in general. I think that's the best part about the generation that's younger than me. Y'all keep a dude on his heels. Like when I'm on social looking at things that like, even really creative content. Like when you see people like serve up their idea of something through like really creative content, I get really excited. Like that's really dope. I think what TikTok has done for this generation is created a marketplace to let youthfulness, not just idea and experience, because experience costs too. Like to create a concept shop always use Samara will be my muse today. But if Samara's like, Jay, I'm going to do a print concept shop so people can come in and print whatever t-shirt they want on, or not t-shirt, on whatever garment they want, and there'll be a designer, and they'll be able to. We'll have 25 stations. We're going to be in a high-profile location. It's going to cost me 25 times whatever that thing is plus the labor. Like, yo, that experience is expensive, but important, right? Because I think that thinking is the future of agility, right? Getting new ideas out there. That's something that I love about the generation that I'm now the elder for. Y'all are new exists for 30 seconds, and then the next new is 30 seconds later, and it sometimes it's exhausting, but it also teaches you a new pace and helps you have to understand the pace of change, also the importance of slowing down. Talk about that later. But I think the direct question was around retail versus experience. Retail's dead. Consumer engagement, serving communities, investing back into the people that are your consumer, creating a socio capitalist ecosystem that stands up the community around you is the future model. Yeah, I can't wait to see the first, like, Chris, you thinking about that like you got to, oh, you're talking to me. I can't wait to see the first, like we've seen all these Bitcoin millionaires, multimillionaires, and billionaires. I'm curious to see what's going to happen when someone creates like the new big fast turn. Like we see, like, bad example. I'm trying to think of a good one. I can't. I hope that answered the question.
I feel like what you're pointing to is like NFTs, like non-fungible tokens, like that whole ecosystem is actually retail on crypto.
Yes, that's
You
a.
know what I mean? So it's like that should people like, well, anybody can make an NFT. And NFT could be anything. And I'm like, that's the point.
Yes.
Anybody can create something, can die, it can blow up, it can die at the same time.
And as an investment opportunity, I'm not saying go buy up a bunch of NFTs, but the idea of things that you can explore to create and operate and build a meaningful ecosystem to start to stand up some things gets interesting, right? It gets interesting when you can get commerce to happen in this room, and if there's 25 or 30 of us in a room and we got 30 entities and money is exchanging hand between all 30 of these entities, and now we have a perfect ecosystem where we all feed each other and the money just loops around the room, and then somebody looks in the room and it's like, obviously there has to be someone feeding outside source, feeding more capital into the room, right? But you got this ecosystem that's now growing, right? Think about the iPhone and how much the iPhone is the center of an ecosystem, and how many business just evolves and makes Amazon, it can exist because Apple exists, right? Amazon is important because we all have this thing in our hand that we didn't have in our hand 20 years ago, right? And now we're all digital, and I ordered my son some tattoos to wear on his leg before his basketball game at 7:00 at night last night, and it was at my doorstep at 7:00 this morning. I was like, what in the fuck just happened? If that makes sense, right? But how do we create a new version of that that's rooted in the things that we care about and connected to all of us together, and we get a chance to serve us? Those are the things that get me like instantly excited. Like if somebody starts talking to me about a business that's rooted in youthfulness and rooted in culture, and somebody's serious and they talking P&Ls, but they're talking about youthful experiences and community, but they can talk about the P&L at the same time, you got my attention. Because I know you understand how to balance your books, right? or at least the idea that you need to balance your books, right? And you thinking about us and you thinking about it in a meaningful way that's on the edge, that starts to like, it doesn't necessarily need to make sense. That's what this is for, right? This is a platform for somebody to say something that don't make no sense, and we could take an hour and shit, do a case study on it, right? And call 15 other people to try to help us solve it and go back to the person like, you should try this. Does that make sense? I don't even remember what the question was. I just start blabbering. Any more online? Or are we going here?
So a two-part question.
Yep.
What motivates your choice in Jordan number?
Okay.
And that's it. That's your question.
It depends. It's a balance. MJ's legacy is important. Probably MJ's legacy is the most important thing. Always respect it. What the kid is interested in or or isn't aware that they may be interested in, a la like Jordan 17, right? Everybody smiles when I say that, right? Those are the things that get me interested. Like when you sit around and you say something and you like, okay, I said Jordan 17 and everybody went like this. You start to see smile on everybody's face. That's the shit that I just take it in. Like I'm muted. I wear black every day, but I sit and have conversations with people and I say all types of shit just because I don't necessarily want them to understand what I'm asking or not asking. And sometimes I'll ask direct, or sometimes I'll ask indirect, or sometimes you're just looking at a kid or a younger person to start seeing like, yo, all right, I see how you're wearing this. In my mind, this fits. And then I can ask the question, like, yo, would you mess with this? And then if they say yes, I can say, wow, but I'm looking at them. So I think, based on what I'm looking at, I think the answer should be this. Does that make sense? Some of that is how we choose models. Some of it is the brand has incredibly talented people who are incredibly tasteful, who don't get a lot of credit because they work for a brand. Even our creative team, Chris, both Chris's, tons of them. If I say two names, the rest of the team is gonna kill me, right? They always say, "Can you add us on social media?" I'm like, "No, we're one team, right?" But because we're one team, that's why I always speak in team. They don't necessarily get individual credit, but credit to the people at brands because, like, yo, those people got a point of view. And many times, like, yo, I always say team because I'm completely comfortable saying, like, yo, I have an opinion, but I want to speak last. I want to have the opinion of everyone else before, because if I say something, I may poison the water. Does that make sense? You know what I mean by poison the water, right? Like you've now threw an opinion out there, so someone may base their opinion off your opinion, right? But I want to hold because I want to understand what's important to our team and then make a decision, if that makes sense. But Jordan Brand has an incredible, tasteful group of people on the footwear team, and design team, and even outside. It's just tons of dope people. So we leverage them, we leverage our team, and we leverage the world to see what fits, right? So you're not continuously doing the same thing. So when I say Jordan 17, right, and everybody smiles, that makes me realize that when I get home, I can say like, yeah, we should probably be thinking about what? A Jordan 17. Does that make sense? Go for it.
How's everybody doing? My name is Miles. My question for you is, what is your opinion on the concept of black figureheads within our culture selling out whenever they partner with a higher corporation or I'll give you two examples. One, quality control, selling themselves,
Mhm.
coming, a huge fortune and everybody's saying they're sellouts, or within the concept of Jay-Z and his partnership with the NFL? Like, how do you feel about the idea of the selling
this
out?
is you always come with Miles was last week throwing them scuds in here like, oh, okay. Everybody's looking at me now like I wasn't looking at me before.
And I asked that because of you saying that potential partnership with Givenchy and things of
Oh,
that
no,
nature.
no, no. When I say partnership with Givenchy, Givenchy is a brand partner in context and color, so no one misunderstands. We are working with them to do something with them to celebrate hip hop. But for us, celebrating hip hop just means celebrating Black people. Does that make sense? Hip hop is earth at this point to me. So we can celebrate hip hop by going to, what's the spot called down the corner again? Milk what? Milk Bread. I go down Milk Bread and I'm celebrating hip hop. If I go to Pizza Pill, I'm celebrating hip hop. You start to look at the ecosystem and be like, yo, this was ours. Everybody coming into things that was ours and making it their own because of the, like, yo, hip hop. Like, if hip hop doesn't exist, what, maybe that's a whole nother conversation. Hip hop, the balance of hip hop and gentrification. Let's hold on that topic for later. But giving you clarity on the Givenchy thing, and then answering your question around selling out, it's a difficult conversation. Difficult because Coach is a real one. Coach is a real one and a good dude. And those dudes built something from nothing. And we come from the mud, nothing. So you come from, everybody want to make it. Everybody's dreams is to start at the bottom and end up at the top. And somebody come and be like, yo, you such at the top. I want to give you this check to tell you at the top, and I want to purchase your top. It was nice doing business with you, right? That's a capitalist system, right? We can't, that's not selling out, right? That's accepting capital. Now, what that doesn't allow us to do is to maintain ownership in meaningful things long term. I personally struggle with that. I mean, bad, like really bad. We have James Whitner owns 100% of everything that James Whitner has, and that wasn't always the case. When I say it wasn't always a good thing. Does that make sense? When you fucking piss poor trying to make it, you take $1 from your uncle if they offering. Does that make sense? Today it's easier for me to have that conversation and say like, oh yeah, cool. We need to keep our equity intact now because I'm not trying to have a conversation with nobody before I do free game because I don't want to have to think about what I'm gonna say in free game because I may offend our investors. I can't function that way. Does that make sense? I want to be able to feel and react, right? And now when there's an investor stake and when I say something, then I got to think about like my phone ringing, and I do it whole pause. We still got a boss, right? Because we still have partnerships with incredible companies, and so they're not a boss per se; they're partners, right? Because you have partnerships with brands, so I can't like do something that's disrespectful to humanity, right? But I'm going to also, I think the people who work with us understand, like, yo, what up, Ash? If you say something crazy, I'm gonna probably say something crazy back. Does that make sense? And that's just it's the culture of what we built. So for me, I struggle because of that. On a Jay-Z NFL thing, I'm a Jay fan, but that one was a bit controversial only because Jay's credibility saved the NFL. And we don't know if the NFL gave us anything back yet. Does that make sense? Roger Goodell is still Roger Goodell. Does that make sense? And everybody can take that in positive or negative, right? I'm just going to say Roger Goodell still Roger Goodell. And the NFL is doing things now because you can see the imprint of Jay, but we still got how many black owners in the NFL? Zero, right? We have how many black guaranteed contracts? What? 1, 2 tops. So some of those terms are. So do I believe in Jay? Yes, in principle, I believe in Jay. Does that deal not make sense to some people? Clearly it doesn't, right? Is it selling out? No, because we live in America and on earth, and most of the institutions are white and are white led, and most of the systems are controlled by white men. And unless you do business with white men, right? Either we can ring fence our whole 40 million and do business with us and then force them to come do business with us, or we got to participate with them. So there's going to be a balance, right? And some people consider the balance of selling out. My challenge would be to the people who have the capital. Once they get to capital, what do you do next? Does that make sense? So you cooning if you ain't putting back into us. Does that make sense? If you get the money and go do some other shit, like that don't include investing back into the community that you're from, then you sold out. But if you take the bread and you double back and you investing back into the ecosystem that empowers the rest of the community, you good people with me. Does that make sense? And honestly, Miles, even that's my answer. And it's still something that I personally struggle with. Does that make sense? G, you got anything online?
Can you speak to the messaging within AJ12 project? Can you expound on She is Her and Black is the Blueprint, and how Black women were the focal of this rollout?
So it's interesting. Black women's the focus of everything, right? Like for us, it was sitting in a room and talking about how we could make a difference in working with Jordan Brand and what was important to them. And they flat out said, like, yo, the most important thing to us is Black women. And I said, bet, we good there. We done. They're like, what you mean? Like, no, we're good. Like, yo, you show me, like, yo, it's only men and women, right? So, like, the idea of Black women is not the center of just this project. They're going to be at the center of a lot of the things that we do, most of the things we do. From Her for All is just a thing that we're going to constantly be doing to help try to create more equity in the space and inclusiveness and include women into the conversation. Doesn't mean that we don't understand who the consumer is. We know the dudes are still copping and sporting and wearing, and we still targeting them, and it's still a vibe, right? So the whole ecosystem is with her in mind. Second, specific to this story, I seen Black is the Blueprint pop up on social. I think Mark sent it to me, and I was like, ooh, shit, that's fire. This was just my comment. And when somebody says something to me, it's just like, and we was doing whatever else, and I'm like, okay, I hope that sucks because I want to do Black is the Blueprint. So when I think I seen a mood board or 3 mood boards, I was like, yo, this is fire. But this idea that Black is the Blueprint, like, yo, I think I said it in a interview that probably hasn't been viewed. So I'll hopefully not say what the platform was, and they not look at me crazy for leaking what I said in the interview. But what I said was, the thing that I love about where we are now as a collective, meaning the Whitaker Group, is like, yo, our team is as bought into this. Like, yo, I work around like it's 300. It's 300 Mrs. and Mr. Malcolm X's and Martin Luther's I work with. Everybody's bought into this shit, yo. This is not like Chris, you was around that shoot, right? How many times did you see me there? Please give him a mic. How many times did I show up for the AJ12 shoot?
Not at all.
0.
Not at all.
Did I even get feedback?
No,
When did I see it?
when it was done.
I simply say that to say, like, yo, the thing that makes me feel so good is because everybody is with this shit. Like, everybody's with it. It ain't no, like, I ain't gotta like rehash. We talking like taste, and we usually ain't talking. It's like the levels of taste from it. Chris might give me like some Parisian 2050 shit. I'm like, no, I need you to come back 20 years and stop, and then we're gonna be there, right? That's the kind of feedback I'm usually given. Like I say it again, I'm so excited because everybody is just locked in on a vision of what we're creating. So black is the blueprint, and she's the anchor was important, but for me, it felt better because the world would like to believe that that was me. Only thing I said was the lead-in is black is the blueprint. The vibes are this. Mark said to me, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, blah, blah, blah. And that was it. I seen the video, and don't get me wrong, if the video goes bad, then usually I call Chris or somebody else and then we have a meeting. But 85% of the time, that doesn't happen, right? 85% of the time, the team is hitting shit, and I'm a fan, and we're just having these conversations about what's important. So we're North Starring and going back and forth and challenging one another about what this is and what we want to get after and why. And we're creating an ecosystem that's just about serving the community that we all participate in. That is what I like. That's why I get excited to wake up, right? Because now, like, yo, somebody can send me something that's super inspirational, and I can send something back to them, and they may send me a mood board, and I'm like, yo, we using that for, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, we are in a fucking special place, if that makes sense. I don't know if that answered the question at all, but that's what I felt like saying. And anybody in the room got anything before we go back online? Go ahead, G, anything else? Anything online?
Without being a major factor in the fashion industry and the sneaker industry, how can you maintain the integrity of your brands long term?
Said with what was the first? Said
With hype being the focal point.
Because we don't pay attention to hype. Like, yo, I ain't never been trying to be cool to nobody. I'm the coolest motherfucker I know, right? So I don't much care about who anybody else think is cool. Do I understand what's happening around me? For sure. Do I understand the importance of how to serve? Do I understand tastefulness and class and trend and youthfulness and direction and fashion cues and the differences between consumer and lanes? Like, yeah, right? You do this for this long, you get it. But there's one word I'll use. It's integrity. Hype doesn't matter when you have integrity. The thing that I preach to our team is just have integrity. If we have integrity, we're going to be here forever, right? Play the long game, right? It's a long, like, yo, we can fail quiet. The AJ4 behind the scenes was a debacle 36 hours before the shoe dropped, right? And like, yo, we failed quietly and we were completely okay with it. And I think Black is the Blueprint is better because of it, right? So I don't think we're chasing hype. We got a very strong why that I want to believe a very large group of the people who work with us, and I would say for damn sure our anchor people believe in our why. And those people have integrity. They have business integrity, they have creative integrity, they have personal integrity, and they're committed to delivering things that are meaningful, right? And for me, that's the stuff that like yo, you know, shit. It's my job to figure out how to burn through inventory when it's overbought and to make sure the buying team has a better look at the marketplace. And like I can handle that. I just need everybody else to focus on the integrity that it takes to be here forever. And that goes back to what Mal said, right? The reason I get comfortable not sticking, the reason I get comfortable not taking people's capital is built in integrity. The thing about Keisha in her house, Keisha started as, what was your first job, Keisha? Yeah, was your first job with us? Well, what was it? No, what was your first job with us? Yeah, it was studio assistant. And like, yo, there's people that you look around and you like, this person's not going anywhere if it's up to me. Does that make sense? And you start to challenge myself as a leader, like, how do you evolve things? Like, we was at Kev's house talking, and she was talking about a second job, and I was like, I don't want you working a second job. That means we got to figure out how to make adjustments and pay and start to, you should probably still do it behind fucking Keisha. But the point is, you got to understand the people who's willing to dig in, and because when they get really pissed off, they'll call and they'll be like, "What is them pissed off?" And I'm like, "Yo, chill. Chris will do it." The people who like, yo, once you're around a long time, everybody has my phone number, so it's not like, so you hear it. I don't duck. So you just like, yo, it's personal accountability. Is what you add in. Me and Chris was that a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I'm like, you like, Jay, I'm like, Chris, here's this, right? And I'm gonna do that. I ain't heard from him since, right? and not having heard from him in a bad way, right? But it's a level of personal accountability that we all start to have to one another. And with all of that, when you're locked in to ecosystem, and it's not great, like shit, we're a family and we got crazy shit happening all the time too. But I get bought into the things that we do. And my hope is that our anchor people get bought into the things that we got to do. And the hope is that new people come in and they'll stick and they'll get bought in. And if they don't, all love. Or somebody will just come in and say, hey, I just want to come in and learn for 18 months because I want to do this. Or I want to come in because it's this and just do that. Right? It's less about the hype, and it's more about building something meaningful and centering it in why, and everybody being in love with the process. Like those are the things that's like yo, I fight really hard every day so they can focus on their superpowers. Does that make sense? I spend most of my time, I wake up in the morning, put my boxing gloves on, get my Vaseline on my face, and I go fight. And if I'm successful, then I'm able to deliver things back to our team that they can use their superpower on. And if I'm really lucky, I get to take my gloves off and go work with my team, right? Or work with our team and work on that some. But my job, if anybody sat in the office with me, I tell people all the time, if I'm in the office too much, you should look for a new job because that ain't good, right? I need to be going out and fucking killing things for us to eat. Does that make sense? All right. Somebody got one in here? Y'all want to go online? Like Miles and then Samir.
So within speaking about creating something that's meaningful, obviously this is still a job and it's pays your bills and things of that nature. Within starting 20 years ago, what was the balance of your intentions between chasing financial gain and creating cultural impact? How has the balance changed, 20 something odd years later? And within that, how does that affect how you operate your business?
That's the scary part. That's why we got too much inventory. I care too much. Like I do. I still just do what I feel. I use Keisha again. She's a good human being. She come to work. She love what she do. Give you good energy. If I'm feeling fucked up, you see Keisha, Jay. You like it could change how you feeling today. You know what I'm saying? can pay my bills. That's always the measure. My kid's good. You look around at the team as it gets bigger, like, okay, how many of these people are, where is this? I'm constantly balancing that. That's a new thing that I'm learning because, like, yo, 20 and 300 looks different. TBD on that. But it's, you got to understand what a P&L looks like. And if you got integrity and operational excellence, 1 + 1 is 2. 1 + 1 is 11. 2 + 2 is 22. The synergy in 1 + 1 is a lot more than the mathematic value, right? So our profit is made in synergy, not in mathematic value. Does that make sense? So for us, it's about our strategic intent in being in creating added value for the Black experience, because when the community wins, we win, right? So it makes it very easy for me to say, well, now I'm gonna go all in on our team, right? To go all in on the world. Because if we do right by the world and put the right energy out there, like we got fucking 3 shooters at some point. I might hear we got 17. And I got 17 people with cameras. I'm like, I don't care. Like, what do you mean you don't care? Because I never want to cut our legs to be able to connect to the world or tell a story. If something happens in a world that pisses us off, our team can create something in an hour if we need to. Like if it was really, and motherfuckers' phones start ringing, we can have something out in 1 hour. Most people ain't moving like that. And if everybody get mad, that should be out in 10 minutes, right? Like I won't forfeit that for a P&L. Does that make sense? Because the synergetic value, this word might be wrong. The synergy in having it is more important than making another dollar in the short term, because in the long term, what it's going to pay into our culture and the difference it's going to make in all of us is why I struggle. Does that make sense? That's a part of why I struggle. As you get bigger, it becomes harder to balance. And that's even something else that I ask myself, right? As we look to build the bigger office, we're going from one office that we outgrew the moment we got there to another office that hopefully we won't outgrow. And we've been outgrowing offices for the last 3 offices, right? But you try to get to the place and there's always these years. And I ask myself, this year is about, this is me talking to me. Where I'm like, well, this year is about this. So my impact this year needs to be this. Sometimes my impact needs to be that. But at all times, I'm responsible for the P&L. Anything that goes wrong, whether it's on Chris's team, Cav's team, Joe's team, whoever's team, that's on me. So there is an economic balance that you have to always consider. But if you have strong leaders who understand that 1 + 1 needs to equal 2, and if 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, 80% of the year, we got a problem. 70% a bigger problem, 50% I'll probably know already, you won't have to tell me. Does that make sense? So, but I'll be long-winded. In the beginning, I was all of those things. Does that make sense? I was the cashier, was the sales guy, was the buyer, was the bookkeeper, and you understood all of the added value. I keep asking myself, like, I didn't have time then and I don't have time now, because you always find something to do with your time. But done well, you never think about the P&L. You think about who you're serving and create synergy in serving them, and it'll create a meaningful P&L. Someone in corporate America will never function that way. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Samir, you had one.
So would you, if somebody offered you $1 billion for 99% stake in Whitaker Group?
I've said no to some crazy shit already. I've said no to some things, and on a bad day, I'm like motherfuckers. Yeah, I mean, I've said no on a couple occasions already to things that would have probably reshaped the lives of generations of people. But to your point, like our impact, like there's this. I'm 44 years old, and there's this feeling I got of what we're doing, and there's these leaders that surround me that, and I when I say leaders in all these places, there's all these robust leaders who show up in corporate America. It's like the Underground Railroad, and it's not just black people. It's people who really give a fuck about this thing, and it's not just me. It's the whole thing, right? And for us, for at least for a while, I'm gonna play for it all. I already won. I'm from you know where I'm from. You know what I'm saying? So you start to think about like, shoes is clean. I showered in the last 48 hours. Got a haircut. Bills is paid. Paychecks ain't gonna bounce. Healthy. Opportunity. Ability. And I'm surrounded by shooters. I'm gonna try to make a go of it. Does that make sense? In the short term, that me saying that is not taking a shot at anybody who takes money. One day the headline may be James Whitner of the Whitaker Group takes. But if I were to do that, it's like the movie where TBD ... rolls on the screen, because the next move is going to be some other shit. Does that make sense? But for me, I'll leave that question there. I'll say it. It's when I was in jail, I was like, damn, this is jail. And to people who's doing life in jail, I got my brother been doing 20 years in jail, kills you, right? But what I said was, this is the worst they could do to you. As a human, they create these laws and they lock us in these cages, and this is what they do to you. All right. When I walk out, I'm gonna create my own situation, and I'm gonna buy back my own time, and I'm gonna flip it. So if I'm 20 years in, right, that's 240 months. Does that make sense? So if you do something wrong, that's what they're gonna put a number on you. So in my mind, I say, okay, well, I'm gonna just put one on myself. What happens if I just put it all in? Like every day, put it all in. What can I get? And think about it if you're me. I said that when I was sitting in a box, right? And now we're here, right? And in a 20-year roller coaster, imagine psychologically what you start to think you can do. I ain't about to cash that in. Why? Does that make sense? Like I could walk out the door and get hit by a car. There's tons of shit a story I'll tell y'all in a year that y'all gonna be like, what? There's tons of people who don't want to see this happen for a lot of reasons. Our impact, our influence, us being able to ring fence our voice and have a voice, to have platforms where we can all benefit financially, professionally. Like, yo, a unified black, brown voice, dollar with a purpose is something that scares the fuck out of people, right? So what I'm talking about and what we doing, don't think it don't get shots at. I just ain't talking about the shots yet. At some point, you're going to start hearing the stories and y'all going to be like, and the message is going to get amplified because we're going to turn the volume up. But there's parts and pieces to the puzzle that we got to fill. So you do free game with 200,000 people, or you do free game with 2 people, but you built a community because there's going to become a moment where we're going to all be able to stand up together. And in that moment, when we start being able to tell their stories that they've done to us, no different than slavery 400 years ago, right? There's tons of new systems that they create every day to adjust to ways that we're, right? Like we move a little bit right, they can adjust the system to keep us going a little right. Once we take their ability away to shift it because we won't buy in no more, things start to change. Does that make sense? Once that change starts to happen, we get to start telling our stories. Once we are able to start telling our stories, we get to start seeing who's who. And it gets really interesting then. Does that make sense? And everything I just said is very cryptic. And so I'm saying a whole lot without saying a lot. TBD on that one. Come back to me in 1 year and I promise I'll tell you the whole thing.
Hey, Jay.
Angela.
So my question is, I come from a white collar industry where I work in banking, and I am now diversity, equity, inclusion officer. And so what I see now a lot of is what P&L affects your brand. That's what it comes down to. So how do you determine when you're doing collaborations and you're also picking your vendors who you service in your stores, are they there for that economic tick mark, or is it the integrity of the business that you support, the visions that you support? How do you distinguish the two?
Both. I ain't gonna say never asking for a favor. Sometimes I'm asking for a favor. What makes us unique is because we can stand on our own. Hence everything that I say to y'all, right? Like, yo, like we can withstand some punches. That's the P&L part. But in order for us to be a solid business, we got to work with partners that have integrity. That doesn't always mean the whole corporation has integrity, right? You can have a big brand or a big business that have a few people that have integrity and they stand up that whole business, right? And the business may not look like it's doing anything, right? Just call it Pell's Book as an industry. Nobody might not think anything about this thing, right? But if you got 3 of the right people in this wanting to do something that's meaningful, then something gets done. Most corporations don't have hearts. They're not supposed to care. People have heart, right? Businesses are businesses. A business isn't built to give a fuck about you. Do not buy into that idea. People care about you. People make up organizations. People's actions make up organizations. And only thing we can hold people accountable to is their actions. You shift 3 places, and every place you shift, that shift with you. That had nothing to do with where you went. It had something to do with you. Does that make sense? And for me, it's about that. So it's the balance of, A, can we do the right things together and make a difference? And are you giving us the ability to care if your organization doesn't know how to? We in America, I'd be lying to you if I told you everybody who we work with care. Honestly, a large percentage of the people we work with try to make it so we don't exist. There are just a few more people who care and don't allow that to happen. Does that make sense? So to answer your question, it's a balance, right? And it always has to be about dollars and cents, because if we were a nonprofit, this platform would be very difficult to maintain because I would be out asking for money. The thing that makes us dynamic is we make money and we just invested back in. Does that make sense? We built Be Social into our business. We buy real estate because we understand that this is going to be like, yo, we don't make no money off Be Social. We don't make no money off a lot of things. This is a part of the business model. We ain't supposed to make no money. This is the give back. This is our way of, this is ours. If that makes sense. This is y'all's, right? When somebody be like, yo, Jay, I want to do this thing, George. Yo, Jay, I want to do this, George. Yo, Jay, I want to do this. I rarely say no to anything because we need to build a platform to stand for everything and then filter through the things that matter most. Does that make sense? But to be more direct with your question, if there are people that are really, really trying to do the right thing in any organization, we'll give it a shot. Does that make sense? Except it's like Fox News joined the Trump era. Like, that's just dangerous. Does that make sense? That's like the no deal. Does that make sense? All right, go ahead, Samir.
Have you ever thought of, or not necessarily fantasized, because I mean I've thought of it sometimes just in general, but like becoming CEO of like some of the behemoths like a Nike or an Adidas? Like, has that thought ever crossed your mind for like maybe a future with you personally? Obviously, Whitaker Group's still running, having the bones, having the infrastructure to run without you. Do you ever, could you ever see that in maybe like a future thing?
I think an impact. I think how can we impact the most amount of things? I got 60 clicks left. So how can I impact, God willing, I got 60 clicks left. How can I impact as much as I possibly can within that 60, right? So anything that I could do to create the most impact, I would do. Does that make sense? So if that means that there's nothing off the table, if it can create maximum impact, I'm with it. Does that make sense? So I'm usually thinking like that way. Does that make sense? Hey, G, we got anything online? She said, get rid of Mike.
This is like a complete 180 of like the topics that you've been talking about today, but how do you basically balance your work life and like your home life? Like, how important is it for you to actually, separate that?
Oh goodness, that's such a great question, because I'm a parent of two, a 16-year-old and an 11-year-old, 16-year-old daughter, 11-year-old son. And it is the balance, because I truly don't have any space for almost anything outside of what we do and them, if that makes sense. And the other part that I'm learning is like, you got to say it. You can't kill yourself. When anybody in their 20s, go for it. Kill yourself. I had it. I killed myself in my 20s, and even probably most of my 30s. The shit catch up to you. I still work a ton, right? But I think the weight of the work and the weight of the progression and the weight of the responsibility, the weight of responsibility as a father, the weight of responsibility as a leader. You have to balance your mental health, because you get so angry. That's the impact thing. I get so fucking mad at times because you can't move things faster. Like, this ain't this hard. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? This is like, really? We're talking about this for fucking month 2? Are you serious? Does that make sense? So the balance is in this order: my children, work, and my mental and physical health. And the mental and physical health becomes first in the moments when it has to, so don't think I'm crazy, because when you're about to punch somebody in the face. Like, you gotta like tee up, look at their jaw. get a good punch, right? So I know when I'm like, I need to take a break or breathe, or I need to see people, or I need to do free game, or I need to like I'm more conscious of social media is incredible for that. There's like online therapy now. Like you can go to certain people's social sites and get like a whole session by yourself on their stories without even like for sure. Like, yeah, like the beauty of social, there's so much great content out there for mental health. Like even my feed, like I've curated my social feed to a point where like yo, I get dope shit just by like, and even when you follow dope people, like they put out such good energy because the thing is we're all going through the same things, right? And that's the dope part about social, because the way people speak in the tone of what they're going through and how they're going through it and how they're accepting the feeling, and even sometimes helping someone else get through a feeling. And the best part about it, what social is, you can help somebody get through a feeling by trading things with them. If that makes sense. And sending a couple words to them, and it evokes different emotions. So for sure, and it's been really hard lately because as we get more visible, we get attacked differently. Does that make sense? And that's what makes me realize like I'm living, because I'm like, oh shit, oh y'all, that's the move you get. Ah, all right, bet I got something for that. I see it now. You know what I'm saying? So you're challenged differently, and even and as my children grow, my 16-year-old gets to make 16-year-old decisions, and the only thing I can do to her action is react. Does that make sense? And that reaction may not be what I would have loved to do, but it's what I have to do. And I have to balance the emotions of needing to react the way I need to react. Does that make sense? So the balance is like life is real, and you give something up, right? I don't date meaningfully. I don't socialize. This is not right now. Right now, in this moment, I'm fine. But over the scope of years, I think it gives me the ability to focus. Like I've always been this way though. Like just like yo, I just want the world the way I see it. And I'm really focused on wanting the world the way I see it. And for my children, I want to provide them these experiences that help them get to a place. And for my family, I want to be there for them and lead them. In love, I want to meet people that you can have an honest relationship with, right? And regardless of the seriousness of the relationship, it be honest. No, keep going. Oh, get rid of the mic, somebody, please.
At what point do you feel like it's enough and now you can go ahead and just spend that time with the people that you're mentioning that you care about? Like, when is the work actually done? Or do you feel like you can work yourself to the ground?
TBD on that. Because, I mean, that's the catch. When you love what you do, you put it all in. All of it's in it. If someone's gonna love me, they're gonna love me in it. Now, the only exception to that rule is my kids, because I gotta love them in their existence. I gotta love them where they are. They may not love the reaction, or they may not always love how I'm loving them, because my love may need to be a reaction to an action, right? So I gotta love them where they are. Everything else is a choice. So if I'm choosing and someone's choosing me, they're choosing knowing that I'm out for the world. Like, so if somebody, like, yo, for me, when you get me, you get somebody that's working for something. It means something. Now, hold on, pause. Don't nobody cry me no tears. Like, yo, I live an incredible fucking life. Does that make sense? Like, I am piss poor from, like, yo, I get to do all types of crazy shit. So don't nobody go out there and think like, oh, this dude is like, nah, bro. And I simply say that because, like, yo, I live a privileged existence. There's a cost to care. Like, I've gotten to a certain stature in life that allows me to be able to invest it all back in. To Mal's question earlier when he was like, yo, yeah, I could take the money and then what? Like, right? Like, I don't know if somebody gave me, Samir said, if somebody gave me $1 billion today, what could I do? I read Ray Dalio's book. He got 16 or 17 or 22 or 15 or 28 billion or whatever he got. He can't change education with 28 billion, right? So I got to work this thing from another angle. Does that make sense? And I'm trying to the angle is the 40 million angle, right? It's 40 million of us. So if I forfeit some money, but 40 million black people create an ecosystem, then I still got equity. Does that make sense? And if someone understands your journey, if somebody loves me, if somebody falls in love with me today, they're falling in love with me as I am, sitting in this spot, knowing what it is that I care about. They know exactly what they signing up for.
But you do change, so how do you like balance that? You know what I mean? I'm sorry. It like
No, this is good. Change in which way?
like you are still you, but things always change. You know what I mean? So like as let's say we're looking at James 20 years ago or whenever it is that, this wasn't in existence and they were with you then, say they're growing with you now, things change because everything around you changes. So, how can you aid the other person? You know what I mean? I know you said like you don't date freely or whatever the freak you were saying, but
No, well, Samir, you've seen, I'm trying to think who else in the room was around that long ago. Samir has known me the longest in this room. Right? I'm pretty much still the same. No, but am I much different than what I was 20 years ago?
No. I mean, like your tenacity is not lost a bit. You know what I mean? Literally nothing has changed other than the position in which you created.
And my damn chin is definitely great. Shit is like not black anymore. It ain't coming back. It's over. That changed. And there's people who've been in my life. I've known my ex-wife for, I'm gonna get this, I'm 30. I've probably known her for 30 years or close to 30 years since I was a teenager, 44 years old. And we're still tight to this day. She probably say the same thing. Like, yo, she'll say shit to me like, when you die, I'm getting your brain fucking tinker with to see what's in there. Like, I'm really, like, I'm stubbornly committed to what I'm committed to. So if you want proximity to me, there can't be an expectation that I'm going to deviate much from the things that are really, really important to me. Now, do I come up for air? Sure, I got to eat, sleep. Yeah, but that was good food for thought, because I'm often challenged, to Miles's point. When do you say when? And can this work be done in a lifetime? And is what we're after unrealistic? I'll get back to you on the answer all those questions. Yeah, TBD. We got something online? Y'all want that mic?
What's up, Jay?
What up, boy?
I'm always trying to get in your head and see how you operate, as I feel like it helps my side of the business. I also find that you are a man who is meticulous with his words. And so earlier you said, part of our dynamic as the Whitaker Group is a family. Some people would say that is a dying or impractical paradigm. But us being the community-led business entity, family being the original community, how do you see that as being valuable to how we operate and how we show up as a company in our process and in our output?
Well, the family term is hurtful. It's useful and hurtful. It's useful because someone would be lying if they said there aren't people that I know their name. I've spent time with them. We have had experiences together. If they call me, I'll jump. There's some people who I don't even know who the fuck they are. Like, just being honest, right? Like, just they're so new that they've come in at a time where I've elevated so much away from them, where for them, it's probably more of a community than a family, right? And family, when as it relates to business, is a difficult term because there's a level of entitlement that comes along with being family in relating family to business, right? And with that entitlement is where it starts getting dangerous, right? Because each family ecosystem is different, and subjectivity comes in, and expectation comes in, and then it just gets messy, right? Now, when I start talking about the people who really know our principles, and I'm not going to name people, but you know who they are, right? Right? Like, there's people who get rooted into it, and once you're rooted into it, you kind of rooted into it, right? And we all become very connected in that way. And then I think after that, like, Kamaya is a good example. I love Kamaya. Some days I want to kill her. But Kamaya is now 25. She's been around since she was 17. You know what I'm saying? Like, something in that is just like, I want to kill her, but am I gonna really? Does that make sense? I'm gonna scream, I'm gonna holler, I'm gonna lecture, I'm gonna send these long ass text messages. But for the most part, when the intent is good, it's just this nuance. It's a startup nuance, right? Because as you get bigger and you insert people who aren't in it for the same reasons, it starts to get blurry and messy. And even some of the people who've been rooted in it for forever can even let lines get blurred. So I say all that to say the word family is important. Cav uses a word. What word did he say? Team. So it's family versus team. And team pisses family off, right? Because there ain't no team reunion. It's family reunion, right? But it's just this idea that I tell people all the time. I come from the mud, right? Where I'm from is crime riddled. So you watch a lot of mob movies growing up, and loyalty can be even you can be the loyalty can be toxic in the places where we're from, right? But the catch is you got to build with people who become family. So you're a team, and some people are family, but some people ain't earned the right to become family. Does that make sense? And that's the thing that's just you can't say because it's gonna hurt someone's feelings. Like, yo, I tell people all the time, earn the fuck in. Like, yo, I don't count hours, but obviously it's easy to say because it's my company. But like, yo, I can start naming people who don't count hours. Like, yo, I don't know where the fuck Chris is at sometimes. Like, yo, where are you at? I'm in Baltimore. I can't do this because I'm in. Then I go to this. Sorry, there's certain people who you just like, yo, they might annoy somebody because they want what they want, but I'm like, yo, you got to hear them out because for their reason and their function, like, yo, friction isn't always bad. Friction is because someone has a sharp point of view somewhere and it's not connecting somewhere else, and someone who's balanced need to hear it. When you got two people who are passionate and really care having a debated argument, I want to hear it because there's a lot of solutions that can be had, right? The notion of team is more HR safe because, again, us as a big business, you got to get people will take your kindness becomes weakness. Your weakness will your weakness will have you out of business. Let me say something to y'all. Don't no company give a fuck about the Whitaker Group if we can't pay our bills. The end. Full stop. Right? They don't give a fuck if we can't pay our bills. So we got to manage that. So when you start hearing team versus family, it's because, hey, it's very tough to hire committed people right now, right? It's very tough to hire. So you got all this inflow of people who might come in and might come out, and they want the fun job and they want the cool job. And somebody's question online was like, oh, they're here for the hype, right? They're here for the hype and the shoes and the girls and Instagram posts, right? None of that shit matters to me. Everything else does. And until that stuff don't matter to you, you probably, and if it's gonna matter to you, you probably ain't gonna be around long anyway, right? Right? And in that exchange, I'm not mad at, but I'm not about to sit here and call you family either. That's not happening either. Does that make sense? So as you grow, that's the difference. And it's one of those things that, like, yo, it's one of the things where I'm saying, like, yo, I was having a conversation with a leader recently, and the thing that illuminated from the conversation was there's a comfortable point for us. We're on our way there. We got a further way to go. We got another growth spurt to hit. And anybody don't know, we've been growing since 2011 nonstop. Like, it's crazy. But there's going to come a place where we plateau. And the reason we'll plateau is not because we can't grow anymore. The reason we'll plateau because we're at a safe level for what we want to accomplish. Does that make sense? Because the plateau past that point, then there is never family at that point. It would rip my heart out of my chest. It will force me to be something that I don't want to be as a leader. So I don't think I'm willing to grow past that point. That also might be the point where y'all see that headline. That also might be the point where I would go and run whatever Inc. if that gave us more impact to affect. If we're affecting 2 million people now, and if we can affect 40 million people, or we can start to affect the masses and affect the whole, how many people in America? 400 million. We can affect the whole 400 million, and I'm only not have to cuss 50% of the time, and I could cuss 100% of the time on Tuesdays. That might be something I could do. Does that make sense? Can our team come? Dope. Everybody's cool. So I'm constantly thinking about how to have the maximum impact. Chris, that was a very long-winded answer to your question, but I hope it answered it. Yeah, sorry. G? This young lady has one.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, we're going to get you a mic.
Thank you. Thank you for this. I'm curious because you're running a for-profit. I'm starting a nonprofit. And one of the things that I think about often is, you start the work for the passion. But
on the reverse side with nonprofits, you do have to fight for the money.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Like, if this platform was flipped on its head and it started as a nonprofit rather than a for-profit, what would you have done, or what would you tell yourself?
I don't think I could have done it. I mean, I could do anything. Nonprofits are tough in the beginning for that reason, because it's all the heart in the world, and people only care about the bright, shiny object. And or a leader that's able to rattle the cage in such a way that it's polarizing to a system, and it shakes it in such a significant way that it gets everybody's attention. So I guess if that's my advice, have very radical thinking and be really pointed in a level of and try not to do a lot. Be very impactful with what you do, so it gets people attention and you bring people along. And be very sharp with your why, like super sharp. I don't care if you could do one little thing really, really well, just do that one thing. Because I think even in business, once you master that thing, you can start to open your aperture for other things. And once people understand who you are and why, the funding gets easy. But even today, that was yesterday. I was with for the nonprofit board that I'm a part of. I don't, I'm the dude. I don't look like the rest of my on private equity nonprofit thing. I have partners. There's 6 of us that we all put in money. So I have partners there. So when I say partners, I'm representing that. So I'm uniquely different than my partners, right? Because just different. But they are all equally as passionate about what they do and why. And in some cases, not in some cases, most cases, I'm learning from them, right? And the thing that I was about to say to you is, the thing that's great about the partners is there's some similarities and some differences. All 6 of those people are learning from each other. And when you're doing something that's so unique, I didn't even know that some of them knew what I was doing. One of them was like, yo, what are you doing with this thing? And it's a reading program that we're building. And he hit me last night, was like, yo, I want in on that. Does that make sense? That's the just doing work, don't feel like nobody's watching, building a network, moving with like being sharp, being impactful, being focused. And remember, it's hard. Like, I don't know who was coming in the Flavor Factory, but like, yo, we was moving boxes, cracking, like, yo, it was everything. Like, you do everything. It's not easy. Like, to get over, somebody interviewed me yesterday, and they asked me what was my emotions. And they didn't ask me the question. They just gave me a date. Like, what was your emotions like on this date? And I'm like, how did you know that date? But I guess it's all out there on the internet right now. But to break through is incredibly hard. And that's why I said I live in privilege. We've broken through, right? So I live in, but to break through is incredibly difficult, right? That's what this platform is for. This platform is because if you close, we want to amplify your ability to be able to break through. We want to be able to give you, see you, understand you, and partner to give you anything that we can do to help anyone break through. Does that make sense? That's what free game is about. So I hope that advice was meaningful, or not just wasn't blabbing.
It was good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ash. Thank you. And in backstory, I met Ange when she was at, can I say institutions or not? I won't. She was at one bank and went to another. And it's always interesting because they never thought, hell, I'm gonna be honest. I'll talk about the bank that she went to. She went to South State. And I'm like, I just didn't believe in banks. And she went to South State. She's not at Pinnacle. But when she went to South State, she was like, she called me and was like, yo, you need to come in here. And I'm like, Ange, nah. And I came in and took the meeting and met Mark Moy, one of the best meetings of my life. Because what I said to Mark was like, yo, I want y'all to bank me like I'm a white man. That's what he asked. He's like, what do you want? It's like, I want you to bank me like I'm a white man with my same circumstances. And banking has been different for me since that day. But the juxtaposition of what's been different for me is also what's been different for Ange, because it wasn't just me that she gave that opportunity to. We done free game years ago here, and client after client after client, she's now introduced one bank to so many of us that another bank called and said like, yo, can you, Pinnacle called and was like, yo, can you come over here? And now she's at Pinnacle. And so that is what happens when our community all shows up for one another and do right by our relationships, because it gives someone who may be starting a business, right? Gives her power to now go have a conversation, because us collectively have, as a community, we've done right by a person. And now we've stood behind Ange, and now she has power in her organization, and they understand our impact, so they'll take a risk on you. Does that make sense? That's the power of community. I think that's probably a good place to leave it. Thank you, guys.